choice that will impact the lives of thousands of people living on Oahu. The top candidates for U.S. Congress faced off in a debate right here on KITV4 tonight. KITV4's Kyoki Kerr was one of the panelists asking questions of them tonight. He's live with a recap. Kyoki?
Well, Paula, at least Charles Djou and Colleen Hanabusa were consistent. They avoided answering some of our questions for them, but they also dodged questions from each other. Take a look.
Republican Charles Djou asked his Democratic opponent Colleen Hanabusa a fairly simple question since she's been running for Congress for the last year.
Can you name a specific bill that went before the U.S. House for final passage that you would have voted no on?
But Hanabusa did not name a single congressional bill she would have voted against.
I don't know of any bill per se at this point in time, because quite honestly, I haven't had the opportunity to look at it, to study it, and to be part of that process.
I raise this question here because in the last 4 years, as a member of the Hawaii State Senate, my opponent has voted yes on every single bill. Not most, not 90%, every single bill. That's not leadership, that's a rubber stamp.
In Djou's first 28 days in Congress after he won a special election in May, he used taxpayer money to make 2 robocalls and send 4 mailers to all of his urban Honolulu constituents. So Hanabusa asked him,
can you tell the taxpayers how much of their monies you spent in those 28 days and why you had to spend it all in the 28 days?
Djou did not detail how much money those phone calls and mailers cost U.S. taxpayers, but said this.
Everything I've done is legal and is completely informed and completely conforms with all of the standards of ethical conduct in the U.S. House of Representatives and is no different from what any other member of Hawaii's congressional delegation or other members, Republican or Democrat in the U.S. Congress, have done.
I'm still curious about how much it costs, because there must be a budget, so Mr. Djou must know how much was spent.
Now, after the debate, I asked Djou's congressional spokesman how much money his office had spent on those mailings and phone calls, but we did not hear back from him tonight with any figures. Paula, Laura, back to you.
All right, thank you, Kyoki. And joining us now, political analyst Neal Milner, who joined Laura in our web room to watch the debate and KITV's live wire discussion online.
Yeah, and we had great questions, right, Neal, from folks, and of course a lot of opinions on how the candidates did. But Neal, let me ask you this way. How do you feel the candidates represented themselves tonight?
Well, somewhere about 2/3 of the way through the debate, Charles Djou said that his answers were clear and simple. And I think that's a good way to think about what the Republican response was, and that his responses are, love it or hate it, the Republican response in these kinds of questions, which Djou does very well, are clear, they're easy to understand. Whether they're right's another question. And he did an effective job of getting that message out, so you can make a judgment about it. He occasionally seems to be on message a little bit too much, but it was out there. The Democrat, Hanabusa, has a harder job. This is a harder time to be a Democrat. The message is more complex about why the stimulus worked the way it did, and that unemployment is still bad, but it's not as bad as it would have been. Her job was harder. I don't think she did a very good job of representing it. I don't think she was as explicit and as forthright and as passionate as you have to be defending that kind of position if you're trying to convince people of it. So I think that was basically a problem that she had. She wasn't able to take these tough but important messages and translate them into something that's a clear and compelling story for people to understand.
What do you think the candidates need to do at this point in time to connect with the voters now to get that vote?
Well, I think it's not just what the candidates are going to do, it's what outside money is going to do to help them. I think in the case of Hanabusa, I think they're both going to have ads from the outside. We know the Republicans are putting money in. I imagine the Democrats are too. It's very important for Hanabusa to hold on and to mobilize the turnout in favor of the Democrats. The Democrats are less enthusiastic about this election. In Djou's case, I think it's to use this money effectively he has to continue to move some of the moderates over to the right. The moderates clearly are leaning in the direction of conservative candidates. There just aren't too many moderates here because this is a pretty heavily Democratic state, the moderates and the independents.
All right, thank you very much, Neal.
Sure.
Well, KITV4 viewers got a chance to discuss and comment on the debate as it was happening through our live wire on the website.
I've got a couple comments for you. This is from Ed from Mililani. He wrote, a great deal of discussion has been about the district one lives in. To me, the person elected to Congress should be held accountable to everyone in the state and not just the district they live in.
And we have another comment, this one from Conrad. He writes, I think it's still too early to cast my vote. There is definitely much compassion from this forum. Grades out for the candidates. Djou C, Hanabusa C. All right. And stay with KITV4 as we host another live debate, this one for the governor's race. Neil Abercrombie will debate Lieutenant Governor Duke Aiona next week, Friday, October 22nd, also at 7 p.m.